am I working? Yes, I am. Okay. How's it going? And here I am. I'm back in the studio. Well, you wouldn't know that I'm back in the studio because hey, you've been here all along. Anyway, so going to carry on. So I've made a start with the MIDI connections, and that's been quite complex because I have one little unit down here. See this one here? That's got one MIDI in and 5 MIDI throughs, and that's my main hub. So I was thinking, how can I get away without more hubs, you see, because I could buy another one probably, but it turns out that I've got enough MIDI throughs on some of the devices to do everything. So this is how it breaks down. The Arteria Mini Freak over here, this has got MIDI through, so I've got one leg of that 5-way bank is going here, and that's got a MIDI through to the Mini Nova. So that's those two taken care of. Each of the chord modules here, the Mod Wave and the Multi Poly, has its own MIDI leg. So that's 3 taken care of out of the 5. And when it came to the rest, and this is kind of fun. So one leg that has gone firstly to the Digitact. Then it's gone to the Tasty Chips GR1. So that's the granular synth over there. And that also has a MIDI through, and so it ends up with the Volca sample. So I only want to play the Volca sample with MIDI, which isn't very often, to be fair. Then I can sort of switch on the GR1 as well, and it should play straight through. Similarly, it's rare that I actually need the Mini Freak or the Mini Nova and not the Mini Freak as well. I tend to use those. If anything, I tend to use the Mini Freak more. The Mini Nova was a bit of an impulse purchase, but it does have a vocoder. It's nice and simple. It's got a few big twiddly knobs, and there is plenty of adjustment on it. It's a nice, not that difficult to get to grips with sound-wise type of synth. So I actually quite like it, but I don't use it as much as some of the things I've bought since. So that has its own leg. These do the 3 boxes, the Digitact, GR1, Volca sample, they've all got one MIDI leg sharing between them. And then the Behringer 55, my new fabulous box of knobs, as my wife likes to call them, the new box of knobs has MIDI in and through. Thanks Behringer for that, because that means that the Korg MS-20 miniature repro of the MS-20 is now hanging off the end of that. So thanks to the number of mini throughs available, that's all done. And then, of course, how am I connecting the control keyboard and everything? So the control keyboard is plugged into 2 things. It's plugged into the M Audio. This is the interface that's going to go to my old iMac over here. So that's that one. And it also has a USB interface, and that's plugged into the laptop here because that's connected in turn, or will be when I get all the USBs in place, is connected in turn to the Focusrite Scarlett audio interface over there. So I can have MIDI going to 2 different computers. The question is, which of them is actually coming back out at me? And for that, I've left it at the moment with being the M Audio, so it's coming out of here. But I might change that. It might be in future with trying to get to grips with Ableton on here as well as Logic Pro on there, that I might change that over, or at least I can if I want to, So that's everything on the MIDI front. The next thing is to get the USBs on the way. So it's USB and then audio and then finally power, and then maybe, just maybe, I can start playing with it all again. I'm so excited, but I've still got a fair way to go with all the audio connections and everything. So what have I done? I've got the microphone here, that's going to sit back there when it's not in use. What else have I done? I've got starting to put some of the audio in. Now I've had a bit of a dilemma here now because I've got a mixer, and you cannot get most mixers. I would really like more mixers to have stereo inputs in recognition of the fact that most of these modules, most stuff these days has stereo outputs, for crying out loud. and you don't really want to actually control them independently. I mean, that's what the pan is for, isn't it, right? Anyway, so what we've done, I've got drums in 1 and 2 because I'm going to have to do it that way. So drums in 2 separate channels, that's the Digitact. But the Volca, the Mini Nova and the Mod Wave are all on this switch here. Oh, that reminds me, that needs an input. That's something I've missed. Oh my word, how did I miss that? Well, I guess I know what I'm doing next. Okay, so that's got to go into 2 of these channels, and that takes care of them. So the Volca, yeah, those 3. The Multi-Poly has its own input, so does the Mini Freak, so does the MS-20, but I'm now a little bit short on, obviously I want to have something for the System 55. That is definitely going to need an input, because when I get all this up and running, my primary focus is going to be on this. But, I know I've only just got the Multi-Poly, and it's a beautiful piece of kit, and the Mod Wave, they make fantastic sounds. I also am looking forward to getting into this, but hey, this is my retirement hobby. I have got many years ahead of me of working and playing with this stuff. Well, I hope I have. You never know. You never know, do you? You never know. But I'm going to do my best in here and see how it all pans out. Oh my word. Oh, right. Cracking on. Going to carry on with the audio and see where we go from there. That's going to do a little bit of a time-lapse animate, time-lapse film, you know the things that's to go on here, and then we'll see what happens. Oh. So that's a little bit of audio done. So what I've managed to do, I realised that I hadn't put the amp, this triple selector switch, I hadn't put that anywhere. So that's now on input 3 and 4 of this little Yamaha mixer. Next to the drums, which is on inputs 1 and 2. Make sure I don't have the phantom power on, that's not going to be good for it. Anyway, so that's all set. I'm going to set them to their nominal at sort of ideal levels for starters. Right, where was I? So that's done. The audio from the Volca, yeah, that goes in there. And the drums are in there, yeah, okay. Now, over here, now this is where things have become a little bit, became a little bit interesting, because I couldn't work out. I was actually short of an input for the System 55. Now I have an input for it. So what I've decided to do here is these mixers, these modules, there's a mixer module here, and I should probably check the actual voltage level, but I reckon that I can use the output, the signal output from the MS-20 can be a patch into that mixer. Why not? That mixer can then be the summed up output. I've got a separate mixer here. Anything else I want to mix together can all end up ultimately in that mixer, and that's what we're going to do. So that's going to be this. I'm treating this like one large analog synthesizer, and I think that's probably the best way to go. And I can see that there may be some opportunities here to patch between the MS-20 and here. I do have scope. I am going to be checking the signal levels. Some of these signal inputs are limited to 3.5 volts, and some of these will go out at 6 volts. So I have to be careful that I'm not going to blow anything up over here. That would be an awful shame. Some of these are only, yeah, plus or minus 5 volts. Some are only 3 volts peak to peak. So I've really got to watch myself with all of this. So that aside, though, I think we're getting somewhere. A lot of it's now in the detail. I need to do all the power stuff. There's been no power stuff done yet. Power stuff's going to come next. But frankly, I'm knackered. Frankly, I am absolutely shattered. We've been out today. I've been out this afternoon to get a few more cables. So, going to give it a little while now. Have a cup of tea, have a rest, maybe watch film, and then when I've recovered myself, I will be back to put all the power on down there, and then gradually, if any new cable needs present themselves, then I'll sort those out. I do have one other bit which I haven't touched at all actually, and it's this. This is a mini disc deck that I've had for many years. I absolutely loved the mini disc when I came out. Because I'm also a melodeon player, I have a Streb electronic melodeon here. That's going to be part of this. I haven't even brought that out here yet. I'm going to do a whole video on that, and that's going to be the kick-off from there. This I've recorded many discs over the years, especially with the melodeon. I've got a number of other some audio files and things like this. This mini disc player is such a lovely piece of kit. It'd be a real shame not to have it. I do also have a miniature, the little portable mini disc player recorder elsewhere, and with the stacks of mini discs I still have, I've got loads of material there for sampling. So I can sample off this, either go straight in the Digitact here for drum sounds, etc., or some maybe long, not one-off, but some long samples to go in there. But also the tasty chips. This thing is awesome. There's loads of space on this, tons of space for putting samples on, and the number of separate voices you can have in the grains is also very high. A little bit tricky to operate. Again, there will be discussions about that on a separate occasion. So there you go. There's much going on. Oh, this does not have its own audio interface, so I've got this very old M Audio. Look at this, M Audio Fast Track Pro. Remember these? So I had this, I bought this when back in the day of this Mac, this iMac is 2009, that Fast Track Pro is about the same age. So the PCs kind of stopped, or the Mac rather, stopped supporting it. I've found that a few times. A few Macs stopped supporting stuff, but I suppose that would work, but I don't need it to. I've got the new one. This one I'm going to attach to the GR1. It's going to be the audio interface. It is class compliant. It's quite old, but it's class compliant to the point where it will plug in to the GR1. I can record samples off it. And I'm going to get those samples, well, from various places. I'm going to use one of the monitor output from here as a sampling tool, and that can be fed into this to record samples, but it could also be a throughput which ends up on either the Digitact or the GR1. Those are the two, and of course I want to be able to record samples in such a way as I can put them onto the mod wave, and even into the Mini Freak if at all possible, to load samples in there. There's lots and lots of options. It's going to take me a long while around this. It's quite a journey, and that's what I'm going to be doing. So I hope you'll come with me on this journey. It's going to be fun. Still got lots to do, but I will see you in the next section when we start getting all the names sorted out. And oh boy, Insta360 X5 that I've been using all the time, and I'm now in pure video mode, which is supposed to be very good in low light. Now I've already got an X2 as well, and you may have seen other channels, Colin First, people like that, use these cameras as well, and they are awesome. I'm so glad I got one of these. And what people don't mention a lot actually is the editing software, the Insta360 Studio, which is free download. That has this very simple software. It's got, it's not like a full-on editing suite, but it's got the video track, the audio track, and it's got the titles, and you can do transitions, and you can put keyframes in that change the angle of the 360 recording, so it will go wherever you go. It will follow you around. So that's a quick interlude. I'll probably do a whole video on the X5 at some point. In fact, if you look at my channel, there's a Conisborough Viaduct and one about the Falkirk area with the Kelpies. These are both videos that have used the X5 and in fact the Conisborough one was its first outing on a 3-meter pole as part of the No Drone No Problem. Ironically, I did also have a drone that day. So where are we at with this synthesizer journey, as someone in a local shop at a music shop called it? Well, so far on this journey, we have all the audio cables connected. Let's tuck that one in over there. So we've got all the audio cables connected. We've got all the USB connections that I want to different units all feeding back into the laptop. Except for there's one there, the old M Audio Fast Track Pro, that needs a USB connection, and I haven't quite, not sure if I've got enough cables for that. Might have to dig out another A to B USB cable for that. You know, but for years I didn't need an A to B USB cable, apart from the odd printer, and suddenly I got back into my old hobby from years ago, something I've loved for years and I don't know, let go for various reasons. I'm back, and synths, and my God, that almost everything around here, that, you know, the Digitact, the 4 synths over there, the 2 synths over there, and yeah, and that, and yeah, stuff around here all uses a USB A to B cable. So I'm glad I kept them, because they're coming in really handy right now. But the job I want to get onto now is trying to organise the power requirements. I mean, as much as you are a 360 camera, but Mr. X5, sometimes you're in the wrong place. I'm just going to have to move you around there. Right, so from here you should be able to see that I've got one socket down here. Now here's what I do for my mains layout. I've got loads of multi-way sockets. My wife goes absolutely mad at in a way, about all the amount of power sockets that I have. But you know, if you watch the public information films from the 1970s, well, naturally, that when everyone was plugging in, you know, valve-powered TVs, electric fires, fridges, toasters. Of course, we still have some of those things, but you know, we used to have a lot less sockets in the house. There were fewer sockets in the house than there are now, and people used to make things run off those multi-way socket blocks. And of course, that what happened is they overloaded the sockets. They had fires, and you know, the fuses and the fuse boards weren't as good then as they are now. But they're a little bit, you know, now we've actually got some better protected electrical systems and things, and people are more aware. But all this kit around here runs on next to nothing. You know, 10 watts here, 5 watts there. Everything around here runs on relatively low power. Now I know that you could say, well, actually, there's a lot of relatively low power devices make up one high power device, you know, something more powerful. Well, yes, to a point, but I'm certainly not going to exceed the kind of current we'd expect from a socket. And in this room, I can't even do that. The entire studio is being powered from a 16 amp circuit breaker, and that includes about 1,200 watts of heating. It's a well insulated room thanks to the work I put in. So yeah, I've got, in the winter, I've got around about 1,200 watts of heating. That does very well to maintain the fallback temperature in here of 12 degrees. But when I want to come in here, it's working off of a, what is it? It's a Nest. I always get Nest and Hive mixed up. So it's a Nest type computer-based thermostat system. And what I did, and if you just look over here, again, I think I'm going to have to move you around. If you just look over here, I'm sorry, this is completely on the side, isn't it? But you can see a little box down here of heating relays. A dead spider as well. So the heating relays in there, little box I put together. Those relays have contacts at 20 amps, which is obviously way above any of the heaters. The heaters I'm using, because I keep them relatively low, that probably don't draw more than about 4.5 amps. And again, I know that I can't draw more than about 16 amps in the whole room, because I've got a limitation on power in here. Plus that out into the garage I've got the earth leakage trip in there, and that's actually fed off another earth leakage trip at the main distribution box. So that used to give me a bit of a problem actually. I have had some nuisance trips in here. I used to have another earth leakage trip in here as well, but 3 trips in a row is far too sensitive. So what I have now is more than adequate. As it is, the only thing that bothers me when I'm turning it on is the iMac. The old iMac from 2009, I think probably has some sort of caps in the mains power supply that probably present a bit of a spike. You can certainly see quite a flash when you first plug the mains in on that machine. Even its later sibling, for 2015 iMac I have upstairs, yeah, that one also creates quite a bit of a blue flash when you plug it in. And I have known that before to take down the earth leakage in here, and that's a bit of a problem because everything goes dark. I have the windows shut, the curtains shut most of the time in here. And the circuit breaker in this room is behind that storage rack, which to get at, I have to put everything out and pull the storage rack right out. It's not impossible to get at, but it is a bit of a pain. So I'm hoping that by moving everything back into this studio from its old home in the house, that I'm not going to start experiencing a lot of these earth trips whenever I turn the iMac on. And perhaps another reason there for moving over to PC, but something more modern than PC based perhaps. Anyway, I'm digressing rather badly here, aren't I? So how do I do the mains for this? Well, here we go. So my methodology is to have one decent, at least one, so it should all be decent quality, but one decent quality main distribution panel. Now this whole thing is rated at 13 amps. I'm going to come nowhere near that, even with all this stuff plugged in and switched on together. And 4 sockets, I've even got a couple of USB outlets here, which I will probably utilise because I do have some USB powered stuff. I've got I've got the clock, got a Nixie Tube clock in here, and also the MIDI, little MIDI through device, multi-output device I've got in here is also USB powered, so I probably might utilise those save on adapters for other things. So that's going to be my main device. That's powered directly from a metal socket on the wall over there. One thing I have noticed with that metal socket is that the switch isn't working. I may have to replace that socket because the switch does not actually switch on and off, and to do that I will have to get to that circuit breaker. Anyway, not my problem today. Going to leave things as they are just for the time being. I just make sure I won't have any load on that switch until I've got the whole thing replaced. Anyway, so this is going to plug in to a number of other sockets I've got here. I've got multiple power strips. Now, if we were talking about, here we go, I've got a few of these with 6 switches. Some are switched, some aren't. Frankly, it doesn't matter whether they're switched or not. So for my purposes, they're all going to be on or they're all going to be off, and it's as simple as that. And there's going to be a whole host of little switch mode power supplies that providing 12 volts to the synths, or the monitor or the whatever. They're all going to have some sort of power like that driving them, little power supplies. Which is the other great thing about this job, is once I've got some power sockets distributed around, I try to do it so that I don't actually daisy chain too many together. But in this room, I think I'm going to have to break that rule a bit, because I need the power to go around behind me and then on over there to where the bearing at system 55 is. Right, so gonna crack on. Oh no, I'm going to plug that one in. Thankfully, by the process of elimination, most of the power supplies reveal what they are for anyway. They're quite distinctly different. There's a pair of large 12-volt supplies that go with the bearing. There's two small Korg supplies that happen to match the two Korg modules over here. The Arteria takes, the Mini Freak takes a 12-volt supply, 12-volt 1 amp, and it says so on it, and that's what the power supply says too. The Mini Nova takes 9 volts at 300 milliamps, and thankfully that's different. So, and the MS20 and the GR1 power supplies are both labelled from where they were bought, so that's all good. Everything else is quite distinctive in how it looks, so that's good. Now, but the one thing that I've been worried about doing is what I'm about to do next. As I mentioned, I don't like being I'm a bit worried about putting on the the iMac, because I've known it to blow the trip before now when I plug it in. So I'm going to take a deep breath, and the heating's not on, so that helps. It's not the load in the room isn't too great. I've got a light on in case it goes. Wish me luck. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Thank the gods for that. Okay. Right. You know, I do believe we're there. I do believe that is it. I'm going to put a few lights around the place, and then let's see how we go. Get started with a bit of synthing. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Whoa. Come on.